everybody, I am Jared Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to Taking a DNA Test, Orthodox Jewish Mom from Jar of Fireflies. Now, this is a channel that I am not familiar with at all. I think it's pretty obvious that we're looking at someone with Jewish ancestry because Orthodox Jewish Mom. I actually had a lot of people in my Discord recommending that I do a reaction to this video because I think a lot of them said that they'd really love to see what I had to say on it. So I'm really interested to see what it's going to be. But before we jump into the video, please be sure to give this a like. That really does help me out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for notifications on future videos. But with all of that fun stuff said, let's go ahead and jump into the video.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is Jar of Fireflies. Here I make videos all about my life as an Orthodox Jewish homeschooling mother of 3. And today, we are going to be exploring my family history. When I was growing up, my dad was really into our family history, our genealogy, family trees, all that sort of thing.
Great place to start, actually knowing your ancestry, knowing what you might be able to expect, and knowing, what is it back there, because especially when you look at your DNA matches and then you have your family tree built, you may recognize a lot of those people. You may figure out how they're related, or may not know how they're related exactly, but you recognize the names and know where in the tree about where they are. And something I highly recommend for anyone that ever wants to do a DNA test, try to build at least a little bit of your family tree so you know what to expect. And then when you get the results, it may actually make a bit more sense than just, going in thinking, oh, well, my family always said I was this or that.
Okay, here, I'm going to show you. Okay, so it says that I am 46.9%.
So I guess she converted to Judaism. I guess I kind of misinterpreted that. I just assumed that she had Jewish ancestry. Granted, there's 18.7% that we're not seeing yet, but seeing that she has North and West European and then Scandinavian, sounding like she's more of a Northwestern European kind of typical mixture, but I guess let's see. I was expecting, and especially based on the comments that I saw in Discord, that she actually was of Jewish ancestry. So I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted that, misunderstood what they were saying.
North and West European, shocker. And 34.4% Scandinavian, that's interesting. And then 18.7% 2 other ethnicities. Okay, so we've got this little map here that is showing where my ancestry is from. And then we've got this over here. Now, this is so interesting to me.
Yep, just a typical Northwestern European mixture. Not at all what I thought. I thought we were going to be looking at Jewish results, but guess not. She must have converted. So I'm sure people that watch her channel that are seeing this will probably be commenting below and telling me what the deal is.
This is showing 13.3% Scottish. So I guess this is going back like a lot farther than my family's been able to trace our genealogy back. So this is really, really fascinating, especially the Scandinavian part. I'm really stoked about that. All right, now this is pretty cool here. This genetic groups, what does that mean?
So genetic groups are going to be your most genealogically useful part of the admixture test, because basically what it's doing is it's looking at your DNA matches, seeing all the places that they're listing as places that their ancestors were born, and then using that to basically say all of these matches are showing these areas, so you must have some sort of genetic connection to that. So that's why that West Virginia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, and then West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, basically, that sort of mid-Atlantic, Eastern, sort of getting in the Midwest, like, I don't know, the Rust Belt in a sense. And these genetic groups are basically saying that she probably has ancestry that traced to those specific areas. Whereas with the admixture stuff, it's much looser and basically, yeah, you can get an idea of your ancestry, but you really can't take it as much at face value as you can with like genetic groups or genetic communities, or a lot of the different sites have them and they each call them different things.
Genetic group is strongly associated with a specific ethnicity, and there is a significant percentage of that ethnicity in the results. That is, the genetic group will be nested below that ethnicity, otherwise it is under genetic groups. Okay. So this West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Yeah, I've got a ton of family in those areas. That's where when people came over from Europe, I guess everybody settled in these areas. That's where I have a lot of family. in this kind of Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia area. Which that is cool because that's like where my grandparents grew up, things like that. Like that's where my people are from. Oh, this is so fascinating. I didn't know we had any people from there. This is really cool. This makes you want to dig back a lot farther in our family's genealogy.
Yeah, these are just typical Northwestern European readings, and unfortunately, they usually aren't that easy to correlate with your family tree in a sense. And especially when you go to the different websites and test with them, and if you have Northwestern European, you're probably going to see variations on those percentages. And part of it is because there was so much migration between all these different population groups that lived in these areas that a lot of them have these shared genetic segments, which is what they then use to try to correlate specific DNA to specific areas. But it can be hard to decipher that because you'll find these DNA segments in these groups that, live in Norway and Sweden, places like that today. And then you'll also find that in places in the British Isles and places in what you'd call Germanic Europe, or even in France or the Low Countries. Basically, that typical Northwestern, kind of Central European sort of circle of area. And really something that touches into almost all of Europe. So it gets really, really difficult. But let's continue.
Maybe a trip to Europe is in order so I can research more. So I'm looking on here now at the DNA matches because it shows you all these DNA matches, and you can filter these by like extended family or distant relatives, locations, ethnicities, things like that. So this is pretty cool. And I'm finding like my first cousin twice removed and things like that. Like they're all showing up here, all of these extended family members. So this is really, really neat. And then you can click on an individual and it will show you like what percentage of DNA that you guys share. Okay, so there you have it. For those of you who are wondering, I'm 46.9% North and West European, 34.4% Scandinavian. I guess that's the blue eyes, maybe? I don't know. 13.3% Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, and 5.4% English. So yeah, this is totally fascinating to me. I know that we've traced a lot of our family tree back to Scotland and have lived there for a very long time. But I suppose before that, we were living in that Scandinavian country. So, but I will be diving into this history. And at some point, we'll be diving further into our genealogy so that I can get back into this further. But this is really fascinating stuff. I love history. This is such a fun way to see my personal history. And the DNA matches are really interesting. I'm going to be exploring those further as well. And there's also tools in here where you can build your own family tree. You can upload photos, things like that. So there's a lot of really neat tools involved.
Okay, well, that was a decent video. I was a little disappointed because I think maybe I misunderstood what my Discord was saying, or maybe they were purposely messing with me and making me expect something different. She did talk about matches, which I think was one of the things they said was she went into matches. Fortunately, she didn't really show any, but it is kind of, cool to hear that, she was saying she did recognize like a first cousin twice removed and other relatives, which is one of the things that when a lot of people are really wary of these websites and then they see the DNA matches and they recognize all these relatives, especially ones that it's like,
there's no way that they could have tried to research and figured out how I'm related to that person.
well, then, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, this feels like it's a lot stronger than what, it seemed to be when I just looked at percentages. I was a little bit thrown off that she was of just a typical Northwestern European ancestry. It sounds like she's mostly Scottish, which technically with that reading, she still may be able to trace a majority of her family tree couple hundred years back and only find Scottish ancestry and then still get that mixture of a reading. I know I hear from a lot of people that they'll say MyHeritage had the worst mixture compared to what they know about their family tree. So it'd be interesting to see if she were on another website like Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, anything like that, or even especially Living DNA, because they get really granular when it comes to the British Isles and other parts of Europe and Asia and Africa and other places, but mostly, in the British Isles. And then see what kind of a percentage breakdown does it give, and is it similar to what MyHeritage is giving, or does it actually lean much more towards showing a majority of Scottish ancestry? One of the things that I hear from a lot of people when they say that they've done a lot of research into their family tree, and then you go and look at the family tree, what that lot of research usually was researching maybe 2 or 3 lines really deeply, but then the rest of the family lines they don't really look into. If you just look at it from, looking at each one of your great grandparents' lines, That's 8 different lines you can look into. And if you've really only looked into 2 or 3, you haven't even looked into half when you're just looking at your great grandparents' ancestries. But then think about the fact with you get to second great grandparents, there's 16 of them. So if you've only done 2 or 3 lines of 16, that's not even a quarter of it. So that's one of the things I run into with a lot of people that will think they've done a lot of research in their family tree. And it's really just, yeah, they did a lot of research into 1 or 2 lines, but when you look at the majority of the tree, it's actually blank and you could actually flesh that out. She does mention that she's planning to do future videos talking more in depth about stuff, so I may do reactions to those future videos. We'll have to see. Her video was actually very recent. It was August 8th, 2022, which is just a little over a month ago. I'm recording this in September. I'm sure this is going to come out sometime in October, maybe even November, knowing my schedule. But still fairly recent. And for anyone that wants to learn more about why MyHeritage might have different percentage readings for you than if you test on Ancestry, 23andMe, or another different DNA test site, you can check out this video right here where I discuss that. I'm Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger. See you in my next video.